Alison, today we really want to tap into your wisdom and your experience of learning about men. And we're going to be talking about secrets about men that they probably won't tell you. Because the whole intention of this series is to help us understand more about men. And I know that's a big part of your work and a big part of what you've been doing for many years. So when you think about it, Alison, in the years that you've been studying men since 1991, it says, what are some of the most surprising things or secrets that you've discovered about men that you may not think would be obvious?
Well, what's interesting about the way that you worded it, Michelle, is that, okay, I have to go back a little bit. So I started studying men, right, for my own purposes. I found out I was bringing out the worst in them. I had no idea how I did it because I was totally normal. And so I wanted to find out how I was doing it and maybe a smidge of bringing out the best in them. And what's interesting about men's secrets is that most of what they don't tell us about themselves isn't because they're keeping a secret. It's because either one of two things. They think it's obvious. And they have this very powerful instinct that says there's no point in stating the obvious. And what they mean by no point is it's a waste of energy. It's a waste of time and energy to state the obvious. And so they don't. And they're not stating what's obvious to them comes from them. Their assumption that what's obvious to them is obvious to us because we're the same, aren't we? Right?
Yeah. If only sometimes, right?
Yes. So most of what they're not telling us is because they think that would be a waste of time to tell us something so obvious. We clearly already know. Which gets into trouble, causes a lot of trouble because then they think we already know these things, but we don't care, right? That we already know these things, for example, what they need. They don't tell us what they need. And they think we already know because it's obvious that someone would need that, but we're just not important enough to them for them to give it to us. Or this thing that these men told me that blew my mind, like when a man is dating, he thinks that whatever a woman is giving him that's part of who she is. And that whatever she's giving him is all she'll ever give him. And that to ask her to do something different or more would be to ask her to change. And to ask her to change, to many men, that's dishonorable. That's a dishonorable thing to do, to expect somebody else to change, especially for yourself. If you want to change for you, that's fine. I'll support you, but I'm not going to ask you to change for me. When they found out from me, there's so many things that men need that women have no clue that they need it because a woman does not. And that if they told us that they needed it, many of those things we'd be willing to provide. That literally, these men sitting in front of me, their jaws drop.
Wow.
What? Yeah. And this is for your single ladies, this is really important because in a woman's mind, there's like stages, right? And the stages of commitment coincide with things that they now think you as a man have a right to expect of me. So if we're just dating, I'm only going to give this because we're just dating. If we become boyfriend and girlfriend, then there's more that I'm going to give and there's more that I'm expected you to give because of now we have this different form, right? If we get engaged, then there's more you can expect of me. There's more I expect of me, and there's more I have a right to expect of you. You're my fiance, for gosh sake, right? And then when we get married, of course, there's a whole new set of expectations that I have of you, that I expect you to have of me, that I have of me. And, whoever married us has fairy dust that has us turn into these people who already know what they are and are naturally providing.
Right.
Without ever having to say, because it's obvious, right? And oh my gosh, what a recipe for disaster. So that's one whole set of what we might consider he's keeping secret. He's not keeping secret. He's just saving energy by not stating the obvious, that now that you're my fiance, because I am a man, when I get engaged, I'm already married, so I'm already going to treat you like my wife, and I'm already going to have expectations of you like my wife. And of course, you know this because it's obvious to everyone. I'm not going to tell you, now that we're engaged, we're married, right? And we're not going to tell them, we're not married, we're only engaged.
Right.
Don't be treating me like I belong to you, or that you have a right in every decision that I make, or that everything we do, we're in it together. And so, this is now our money. Don't be treating me like that. Where'd you get so possessive and protective anyhow? Right? And why'd you buy me a car? Right? because that's what I'm supposed to do. We're going to be married. You're my wife. You needed a new car, so I got you one. What? Right? So, just the blow-ups based on obviousness. We could go on for this entire time just about those misunderstandings, right? And then there are the secrets. They don't mean to be keeping a secret. And I did a program on this that people who know me were really upset when they got the promotion because they couldn't believe Alison Armstrong would say this. I did a free course called Why You Can't Trust Men to Tell the Truth. And I don't know, I think it's like $15 now or something, right, for recording. But people were like, Alison Armstrong is saying you can't trust men to tell the truth? Oh my gosh, right? What's happened? And basically it teaches what happens with men, which again has to do with obviousness. And I'll skip to the bottom line, okay? So what happens is women, because it works with women think that if we're upset about something, and we let you know how upset we are about it, that you as a man, if you really love me and care about me and respect me, you'll change it. You will change it. That if you really love me, you will change the thing that's upsetting me. You'll change that behavior. You'll change even that belief. So a man will tell a woman something that's true for him, and she gets really upset, thinking that, the more expressive she is about how upsetting that is to her, that he thinks that he will change what he thinks. Well, but men are smarter than that. To them, what's obvious is that what they thought was not a problem until they told it to you. The problem was not what was true for them. The problem was telling you. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So we literally teach honest men to not tell the truth because we get upset at the truth, and they get so much punishment for what the truth is, and they get no credit for the fact that they told us. And you know this, Michelle, you're a graduate of our courses. Men play for points.
Right.
And if you just lose by telling the truth, and if the woman doesn't like the truth, and you get no points for having told it, even when you suspect it, I don't think you're going to like this. It's okay. It's okay. Tell me anything. It's okay. Well, I don't think you might not like this. No. Tell me. Ah! Right? Oh, big mistake. Don't believe her. She's not telling the truth when she says it's okay for me to tell the truth. It's not. So, no, honey, I don't have anything to say. There's nothing. There's nothing.
So he's going to keep that inside. He's going to hold things more closer to the vest, at risk of getting his head bit off or having her mad.
There was, to him, it's obvious that you don't do anything that doesn't have an upside. And if you asked him straight out, he probably would be honest, because honesty is part of who he is. But given the pattern, which they catch on very quickly, he's going to avoid that thing that will upset you and just think to himself, she doesn't need to know that. No, she doesn't. No, yeah, just tell her this, right? That's true. That's true. And he'll work very hard at it. But that's an honest man working really hard to protect himself while trying still to be honest when he'll be punished for having been honest. Yeah. The other thing, and this is consistent with what you're doing here as well, is they're very sensitive to our reactions, right? And you know that, 1995, we had our first workshop. I interviewed everybody ahead of time in order to try and find out what they wanted to know about men. Then I went to the men I'd been studying and asked them the questions that they gave me in the interviews. And then as I was preparing for the workshop, I thought, what if they have new questions and I don't know the answer? What'll I do? And then it popped into my head, I'll just bring them in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had the man panel 1995. And
1995, January of 1995 was the first man panel. It was just this complete sort of emergency measure. I had no idea it ended up being the best part. I had no idea it'd be the way that I ended up listening to thousands of men, right? And they came to me, I'd have to go to them. And what we saw over time was this question, right, that I started with in 1991, what if men are responding to women, right? And we know sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. But when we had this panel of men before us, right, anywhere we started with a limit of 16 women at a time. So it could be 16 or it could be a couple hundred, right? But we found how much they were responding to us. And I had to start coaching women to watch your response because we wanted them to be the most themselves. We wanted them to be the most truthful, right? We wanted them to give us the real goods. And we found that if a man said something sentimental, the women would go, oh, game on. Game on. It was just like women and pleasure and the sounds we make. Game on. Chase those sounds. And the whole panel would start competing for what would make the women make those sounds, right? Yes, the same thing happened if anybody, like we could laugh, laughter was fine, but if there was this huge laughter, someone was like, oh, like that, game on. Now it's who can make them laugh the loudest. They are so organized around our reactions, and which is, why in our sex and intimacy course, we teach women you can lead a man all over your body just by the sounds you make.
Right.
So that's another way that they'll no longer be telling the truth because there's a new game that has more points to it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if you really, truth is my second highest value. So I've spent a lot of time, drilling down into this, reverse engineering it. And, the course, Why Men Lie, Why Women Lie, right? And why you can't trust men to tell the truth. And like how many different pieces of this to find out what do I have to do? What can I do to get as much honesty as possible? And it's all about that it's safe to be honest, that no matter how awful that truth is, you'll never cut off their head. And that you'll appreciate the truth more than you'll be upset about what it was. Like really sincerely, thank you so much for telling me. It's always got to be a better deal because they're human, right? And if you look at women, we can get very righteous about don't keep secrets from me and be honest with me. But women really tend to put forward only what we think will be attractive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our instincts tell us to do, only what's going to be attractive. And we'll even reveal a weakness when we think someone feels intimidated by us. We'll reveal a fault or a weakness in order to be more attractive.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. So powerful. Well, like within the context of what you've already said so far, there's some nuances to this that kind of can feel like secrets. And one of them is the piece that you said they only will do things if there's an upside, right?
Yeah, instinctually, it has to be that way or you'll die, right? If you keep sacrificing yourself and what you spend your time and energy on, you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
It's all instinctual. What's going to make it worth the risk, like the risk of life and limb, if you think of hunters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So please go ahead. You're framing me a question.
Well, no, I'm just kind of pointing out some of the nuances that you brought up in the conversation that can also feel like big ahas, like things I just want to put the explanation point on. One of them being that they're only doing things if there's an upside, and I call it energy efficient. You know, sometimes it's like, I've shared this with you before. My husband doesn't shut the doors of the cabinets in the kitchen because he thinks I'm just going to have to get back in there in a little while. Like, I think that's what he thinks. So I'm going behind him going, because it's just driving me nuts. But like to him, that's not energy efficient. I think that's like literally what it feels like to him. Or he'll carry in mountains of grocery bags like a pack animal so he doesn't have to do it in two goes, as he calls it. I don't want to do it in two goes.
Yeah, and it could be that definitely leaving the toilet seat out. Right? Leaving the toilet seat out, that's efficient. I'm going to be back to pee. Not making the bed, that's efficient. I'm just going to crawl in again tonight, right? Not closing the cupboards, it could be what you said. It'd be interesting what you'd ask, or it could be that because when they're focused, which is most of the time, their brain screens out what's irrelevant. And if he's in the cupboard, it probably has something to do with eating. And they eat at the breaking point when their hunger has broken through another focus. And so now the eating is the new focus, and the brain is screening out everything irrelevant to eating. And cupboard doors are irrelevant to eating. Right. Opening them is relevant, get the dish. Closing them has nothing to do with eating. That's just a delay in eating.
Right.
Right. So it could get screened out for that reason, and not even that he's thinking I'm going to be back. He's probably not. Right. He's probably just trying to get the food in his face so he can go back and do the thing that got interrupted by hunger in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why they can go past something that seems really obvious, like a garbage can that stinks or whatever, if their mind is on something else or they're on another mission, so to speak. They're not even going to notice that. It's irrelevant, right?
Yeah, and it helps to think they're always on another mission. Always. There's no time that they're just like wandering around. Is there anything I can do around here? That's the mission. Find out what I could do around here. How about that? They live in a committed state of mind. It's such a beautiful part of who they are, and as you know, when they get older, they live in more of an open state of mind. But still, when they're focused, they're focused. My boyfriend, who's 63, I have to watch. Who is he now? Just before we started, I'm at his house right now. I walked up the stairs and turned and looked, and he was in front of his computer in his office, and he looked up at me and smiled. Oh, okay. So he's in an open state of mind, right? Sometimes I walk up the stairs and he he doesn't look at all, right? And then I just go get what I need in the kitchen and leave him be. And all these things we do just to be on the same team, because that focused state of mind, which you can see on the panel, they'll focus on this question, right? They're gonna give you the best answer to that question. Focus is a kind of peace. They're at peace when they're focused. And yes, there's the upside part, but just because you said that, there's an exception to it. And that is, there could be a cost in them doing something, but it's a lesser cost than betraying their own values. It's a lesser cost than betraying themselves. Their values is themselves. So they'll do something out of duty that is a total pain in the butt, takes too much time and energy, and they know won't make that big of a difference because it's just going to fall apart again. But I'm a good son. So I'm going to show up and do this for my mom, my dad. I'm a good brother, right? It's my duty as a citizen, as an employee. They'll do things that just because not fulfilling their own sense of honor is a greater cost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when we're interacting with men, I want to come back to this thing you were talking about when you had your man panels and their reactions and the competitiveness, if one got a lot of laughs or one got the or whatever.
Yes.
How do we as women, if we want to have that open-hearted kind of safe relationship with a man, make it safer? How do we make it safer for him to tell the truth or for him to communicate with us? Do we have to focus on controlling our reaction? What do we do?
Well, they can tell when we're controlling our reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So being authentic about our reaction will go further, because authenticity is the second most attractive quality. So that we're being authentic about, okay, that one's hard to take, right? That means a lot to them. Instead of pretending, I'm fine with that. I'm just fine with that.
All right, I'm not mad.
Right. And there's a word, the word is acknowledge. Some people would think the word is accept, but accept has too much putting up with it in it. So acknowledge is actually, like, from the dictionary, the more accurate word, which it means to treat as valid, to take notice of something as true, as valid, as real. So I love the word acknowledge because it has the word know in it, right? That you know it. Okay, I know it. I know that. And men sharing with you information about themselves and then you know it, that's awesome, right? You now have informed decisions. But you'll only keep being allowed to know things if you don't try to change them. If you don't attack them, if you don't come after them, if you treat the things that they're telling you about themselves as valid, as true, as not something to be changed, something to be honored, and that they've now allowed you to know something that you may need to make an important decision about, because you're not going to try to change that truth. And can I give an example?
Yes, please.
So from being, suddenly single, right, after 28 years of being with Greg, while I studied men and did everything right for all that time, I was thrown back into the dating world, and because I thought I was going to be really, really, really old when I was widowed, and I was 58. What the heck, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I so I just start interacting, right, in a whole new way. And everything that I'd learned was tested in a whole new context. And it's been very fruitful for all of my students, most of which who are single. And so I started interacting with, in sync with opposite sex, we call it deal breakers, right? Which could be what you need to give, what you need to get, right? What you can't live with, what you can't live without. In love and commitment, we definitely talk about deal breakers and your minimum requirements, right? The least amount that you have to have. And what is it that you'd rather be alone? You truly just go right to the instinct of, I'm going to die if I'm alone. No, I'd rather be alone. The wisdom about myself says I am better off alone than being with someone who's that way. And so I just did a course called Own Your Ultimatums. And part of it is training yourself to be able to hear another person's ultimatums when they're not stating them as ultimatums. They're not stating this is a deal breaker. They're just talking about their life. They're just telling you what they did that day. They're just telling you favorite memories. They're just telling you stuff. And like we teach in Understanding Men, you're listening to learn what matters to this person, what you care about, right? What's important to you. And so there was one time that Dan expressed something that mattered to him in relationship. And my reaction was kind of like, I don't know if I can be that. And I said, do you need that? And he said, I don't know. He really thought about it. And he said, I don't know. I said, well, can you imagine the rest of your life without that? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And so I didn't. I said, well, let's keep an eye on it because I don't think I am that. So let's just keep an eye on that and find out if you really need it or not. So I didn't mess with his truth because I didn't think that I may be able to fulfill it. I didn't cut off, I'm not that, right? And there are things that I'm like, no, I'm not that. If you really need that, we should just be friends. And so I've been interacting very directly. I am, yep, I'm all in, right? You want a relationship where you explore and adventure, add contribution to it, and I'm in, right? Or I'm all out. No, I'm not going to be that person. Or let's keep an eye on this. But never have I attacked anything that he revealed about himself and that he knew he needed or thought he might need, right? Like I've never attacked it. I've just interacted with it as this is what's true for him. And that's what matters, is it's what's true for him. Well, and then what's true for me. And I'm not going to sacrifice what's true for me to honor what's true for him. It doesn't work. That ultimately creates a ton of resentment and falls apart. Mm-hmm. But the truth keeps coming, right? It keeps coming and even keeps getting clarified, like more and more layers of refinement. Can I clarify something with you? So thank you for how you've responded to me telling you this. And I think you're being over careful now. So let me give you a clarification, right? And I just did this before our interview, and it was so cute, right? Because it was about ways that he touches me, and he would become really careful, right? Like to not start a fire when he didn't intend to put it out. And so he's being very, very careful, like. It's the cutest thing. Like, you have to be that careful with me. What I asked you for was under a particular set of circumstances when you already know you are way too tired. Do not start a fire. You already know that. Like, no, I'm toast. I got to go to sleep. There's certain things you just shouldn't do. Right. The time they're all fine. So it's extraordinary. I mean, you know this, but I I wanted to find out how I was bringing out the worst in them. And I thought I'd have to find out how to bring out the best in them in order to like really get the goodies. And I found that there are very few things I have to do to bring out the best. I just don't do the things that bring out the worst. And attacking a man for what's true for him, invalidating, refusing to acknowledge it as real. No, this is something that's wrong. It's a misbehavior and you need to change it. That brings out the worst in them. And interacting with them with respect. Okay, that's real for you. Now let me figure out what I need to do.
Yeah.
They're amazing about it, even if how they are, and I've seen this over and over again, when a woman keeps telling her truth, right? These are my deal breakers. That how they'll be about it is like really gracious and honorable, and you're a beautiful woman, and I would, maybe give my eye teeth to be with you, but I'm the wrong person for you. And you deserve to have all those things you say you need. And I'm not that. But I know some. You should meet my best friend, right? Because they want to contribute to us. When we're authentic and we're owning what's true for us, they care about us. They start caring about us, and they want to make our lives better, including, I'm going to make your life better by telling you the truth. I'm not it. And I'm going to keep my hat for somebody who is. And they do that just by not doing the things that bring out the worst in them. We don't have to work hard. Just don't attack them. Mm-hmm. They're like golden retrievers. Do you know? They already come wanting to play and wanting to love and wanting to give and wanting to save. And if you don't kick them and starve them, they stay like that.
I love that. I love that. This was such a profound piece right there where you were talking about how sometimes people are sharing their ultimatums without stating it as an ultimatum. I'm very intrigued by that. So when we're interacting, and I'm wanting to kind of just get a little more on this because I know a lot of women out there are dating, right? Like you're describing your experience in dating. A lot of women are out there dating, and we share things sometimes. We share, or a man shares something. A lot of times men are pretty forthcoming about what they're looking for and where they're at in that journey of relationship, if they're interested in something more serious or something more casual or whatever. And asking that question, where you gave that example, you asked the question to Dan and said, is that something you need? Is that something you need? And stayed open to that. And he had to kind of weigh that in the balance. Like he was not even sure, 100% sure after he'd said that, if that was something he needed, right? I just think that's fascinating. So fascinating.
Yeah, when you're listening for what, this goes both ways, by the way. So when you're listening for what matters to them, you may not be able to hear the specific ultimatum, like what are the conditions, but you can hear the area in which there's an ultimatum. Like from the very beginning, Dan talked about his kids. He has 3 kids, and the things he'd done with his kids, what his kids were doing, where they were. I mean, so much information about them. And when we would look for times that we could talk, no, that's the night I have dinner with my kids, I mean, just his schedule was organized around them. And I could hear, he never said, my kids are my first priority. But I could hear in the way that he lived his life, the way he spent his time and his money, his kids are his first priority. And I love that about him. I had no trouble getting that. I don't want to be his first priority. I'm not competing for that. There are a couple of times that my feelings have gotten a little hurt because there was a commitment he made, and then something came up with the kids, and like, no, that's how it works. Your first priority gets everything it needs. And I started even protecting it. Like, we're supposed to get together this weekend, but isn't this the weekend Hannah's coming home from Minnesota? And he said, I don't know. And then he checked, and she was, right? And he said, well, I'll have breakfast with her and then I'll come to you. No, come to me when she goes back to Minnesota. Have as much time as you possibly can with her. You haven't seen her since Christmas. Like, that took him aback in a really good way, right? Like, that I was protecting his time with his daughter when it was going to cost me, right? And I actually said to him at one point, if I insisted that you made me a higher priority than your children, would you still be with me? He didn't even have to think. We said no. But I knew it, right? I already knew it. I'm not asking for it. Don't need it. Dealt with that months ago without us ever having to talk about it. And so you can hear, if you listen, you can hear what matters to them. And why this is two-edged, and as women, we need to be careful. Men think that we're talking about what matters to us. Mm-hmm. So if you spend a lot of time talking about your travels, he's going to assume that what you've had in your past, you want in your future, or you wouldn't be talking about it, right? If you're talking about all the cars you've ever owned, he's figuring out, can he afford to buy you those cars, right? So they take us seriously. They want to be taken seriously, and they're taking us seriously. And it's why I coach women in our singles intensive. You know what? We try to connect over the past, but your future is much more relevant to someone you're dating than your past. Mm-hmm. So unless you want your past in your future, don't try to connect over the past. Connect over the future. This is what I'm dreaming of. This is what I want to do with this next part of my life. This is what I'd want to do with a partner. Not the whole history of relationships or career. You talk about your whole history of career, he's going to go, wow, she's really a career woman. That's really important to her. I don't think she's going to have enough time to play as much as I do. Mm-hmm. Okay, too bad. She was really neat. And then he just doesn't call back. And you're like, why didn't he call back? Well, he's not going to call you to tell you he's not going to call you. He's going to save energy. He's just not going to call you because he knows he's not the right person for you and you're not the right person for him. But we don't even know what we did. We're just talking. We don't know they're listening. What matters to you?
Yeah. I'm so glad you gave that example because I've talked to women over the years that have had that exact experience. Gone on a date with a man. They've talked a lot about their work. They may even be at a place where they're winding down their work or it's not that important to them, but they talked a lot about their career and their work. And then they've said, and he came back to me and said, I don't think you have time for a relationship with me. You're too much of a career woman. And the woman's saying, I'm not, I'm winding down. That's not really who I am anymore. And so I'm so glad you gave that example. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, they're listening. And they're listening for what matters to you. What do you need? Can I give it to you? They're making decisions about it, right? Like, because of our background in transformation, my first date with Greg, he just asked me straight out, so what are your dreams? And because he wasn't my type, I told him the truth. And I wanted to have a foundation. There's this huge project I was working on that I needed to complete. And I wanted to have at least one more child and be home to raise them. Right? I had a son at the time, almost 3 years old. I want to be home to raise them. Right? Oh my gosh, I almost said financially supported. I did the closest to that, right?
Right.
And I found out later that he thought I'd like to fund her foundation. And yeah, she should have 2 daughters. She needs 2 daughters. On our first date, he decided this. right? And I had a sore throat and I was gargling salt water in the bathroom on a first date. Talk about authentic. And he said, oh, it's okay. It'll be a great story for us to tell our grandchildren. But they really do listen. They listen, fit, not fit. Will this work, not work? They listen that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really love your tip of speaking about into the future, hopes and dreams instead of the past. Because I think so often we are tempted to bond over our past. And a lot of that stuff is sometimes yucky stuff too.
Yeah, and we're looking for common ground, and that's good, but find it in the parts of your past that you're carrying into your future. I've always loved tennis. I want to play it more, right? I used to ski. I'd like to get back to that. I've always wanted to do this, right? I'm going to be semi-retired next month. I'm looking for a playmate. These are the things I want to do with this playmate. Future, future, future. And it can be based in the past, but don't spend most of the time there. Mm-hmm. And if they want to know something about you, the tendency is to say, I'm this way because, right? And that's how we'll start talking about the past. I'm looking for this in relationship because of what happened
right.
with my divorce, right? Instead of just owning it. I'm looking for this. I need this. I'm not willing to go without this. Really? Yeah, been there, done that. Won't do it again. You can be that, just terse about it. You don't have to give the whole long drama story about it. Who wants to hear that stuff? I need.
Right. Yeah, that's so powerful. And I really love that you've shared that, because I think that can help a lot of women here that are in the dating scene. And we do have a lot of women. We have women in relationships and also single women on this program, but I think we have a lot of women that will really benefit from this. And I want to be respectful of your time, Alison, and I also want to give you a moment to share a little bit about your work and what's going on in your website and just kind of your world, because I want to give you a chance to highlight that. And then we'll let you leave us with the last word. Anything else you want to share about men or this topic?
Okay. Well, just because it's hanging out there, the same is true for women in relationship. When you're asking your boyfriend or fiance or husband or boss for something you need, the 20-year history of why you need it or why you think it's fair to ask them for it isn't going to help. That's not what's in it for them. That's not where the points happen. That's not where the worth it happens. The worth it isn't that they're making up for your past. The worth it is the difference it'll make in your future that they do that. And so you can leave out the because with them as well. Honey, I need this from you. You don't have to say, and it's because of how my 4 ex-husbands treated me.
You don't need that big, long story, right?
No, that's just, it's this thing I can tell, the whole domain of justification, right? So we justify things that we think we don't deserve, right? So we'll try to make a case. I don't deserve to ask for this, so I'm going to build a whole case for it. We also justify behavior that we think was wrong, right? And which happened just before now. Dan had told me something. He said, don't tell anybody. And then I told the person who is like my doctor, my counselor, my sort everything out so I make good decisions person. And I told it to her thinking, well, I'm her client. This is a confidential conversation. It's okay. So I told her the thing that I said I won't tell anybody. And then I noticed I was justifying it was okay to tell her because she's that person. And as I heard myself justify it, I'm like, oh, I think it was wrong that I did that and I'm ashamed of it. I broke my word. So I went up and told him, right before this, I went up and told him, I told you I wouldn't do something and I did it, and I'm justifying it, and it's just wrong, and I'm so sorry. And he's so good. He said, did you get dressed up to come tell me that? No, I got dressed up for my interview with Michelle, not to come tell you that I broke my word. He thought it was so funny. And so just that justification always comes when there isn't something we're owning. Whether we're not owning, I did something that I promised not to do, I broke my word, I did something I'm ashamed of, or we're not owning, I really need this. And I probably haven't earned it, but I still really need it. And that's all they care about. That's all they care about. And if they say, why do you need that? They don't mean, why do you need it, the story of your past. They mean, why do you need it? What difference is it going to make?
Yeah.
They just don't usually say it that way. They say, why do you need that? But they really mean, what will happen if I do that? How will your life or, your reality be better if I do that? What will that provide? They just don't use all those words. They think why covers it. It's obvious, isn't it?
Right. We're kind of back to where we started from, aren't we?
I know. Isn't that great? We came full circle. Okay. Okay. So having cleared all that up, I need you to do that. Thank you. What's happening? There's so many cool things happening. So the part of getting to work on things that are before gender, right, that apply to all people, I'm getting to do more and more of that. So the new Own Your Ultimatums. And then I'm doing this thing, it's called Lux, and I've been refining it since January of 2020. It stands for Liberation, Understanding, and Extraordinary Relationships. And it was this huge live event, right? Massive production. And then, of course, COVID. And so I've been getting better and better at how to do it online, where we get to have the interactions that cause these huge breakthroughs. What prevents us from listening in a way that has us hear what matters to people? Well, all the normal ways that we listen, right? Most people listen with the question in their head, either what do I want to say about that? What do I think about that? What do I know about that? Or what does this mean this person is?
Right. Right. All the mind stuff, mind chatter.
Exactly. So we're filtering with the different questions that conceal all the treasure. So one of the things we do is we practice doing things exaggerated and consciously that we normally do unconsciously, and it's invisible, the damage to our lives and relationships. So I've been working out how to do that with this content from this program. And I was working on this just before the conversation with Dan, just before getting on with you. And so it's called the Lux Journey. And the videos from the original big production, people get to watch on their own time. And then there's a video to prepare them for when we get together for an hour and a half. And then that's where we recreate all these exercises in Zoom breakout rooms, which we found out work really well. And then they get to have the breakthroughs in how they're speaking and how they're listening. So Lux, I'm super excited about. And oh my gosh, Michelle, last weekend, I recorded 40% of the Queen's Code on audio.
Oh.
Yes. So the book that was the whole point of all those years of workshops came out 9 years ago. People have been asking for the audiobook ever since. It's the number one question we get asked at customer care is, when is she going to do an audiobook? When is she going to do an audiobook? I'm doing the audiobook. It'll be out at least by Christmas, maybe by Thanksgiving. But geez, I think it has to come with a warning, because, the point of that book was to transform the way women relate to men. We found out since then it's transforming the way men relate to men and the way that men are relating to women, not for sin. And then as I was doing the audiobook, no matter how somebody reads that book to themselves, the audiobook is going to be at least 10 times more intense.
Wow.
Because I didn't write that book, right? I watched this movie and typed as fast as I could. And in the audiobook, I'm getting to convey all the emotion, all the heart, all the sentimentality, all the fear that I saw in the 8 characters, right? That they showed me, that they had me feel their frustration, right? Feel their ecstasy. And I get to convey that in the reading of it. I wept. I had to stop. I had to tell the sound engineer, we got to pause, because I wept so many times as I was reading it.
That's beautiful.
That's
beautiful and very exciting. And very exciting. And Alison, your main website is AlisonArmstrong.com.
Yes.
That's the best place for people to go.
Yeah, they can put in understandmen.com and it'll go to the same place. And that's where you'll find Lux. That's where you'll find our online curriculum. You know, that the over 100 hours on understanding men and women. That's, where the audiobook will be announced when it comes out. It's the place.
That's really exciting. Congratulations. That's wonderful. And we're all excited about that too. That is going to be amazing. And it's wonderful you're doing it in your own voice.
I had to. I can't. Nobody else watched that movie, know, and so they don't. The inflection, what word, the emotion, the Claudia's sternness, right? Or her compassion or her own grief, right? Like you can't necessarily tell that from the words, but I know it. So it's why I've never trusted anybody else to do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, congratulations. And thank you so much. Thank you so much from the bottom of our collective hearts. I'm speaking for all the other women who will hear this for sharing so generously as you always do. It's really, really an honor and a pleasure always to connect with you, Alison. And I just cherish every moment that we have to be able to feature your work and really appreciate your contribution here and in the world at large.
Thank you. You're welcome. Keep doing what you're doing. Yay. All the lives are touching. It's a gift to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alison. Lots of love.